Hey friends, did you know that one of the most requested features in Azure SQL Database is the ability to call an Azure function? Well, now you can do that and so much more when creating responsive solutions. Davide Mauri is here to show me how it all works today on Azure Friday. Hey friends, I'm Scott Hanselman and it's Azure Friday. I'm here with Davide who's going to teach me about something new and shocking about Azure SQL. Did Are you saying I can call a function from SQL I'm already writing?
That's exactly right. Yeah, you can call a function or even more, any REST endpoint that you may have in Azure or outside.
You know, when great scientific accomplishments occur, someone always says, "Did your scientists decide that they should do this just because you can? Should you?" Because
Y-
this sounds like an amazing feature, but it also sounds like I could probably hurt myself at the same time. So talk to me about the good and the bad
Yeah,
about this feature.
yeah, that's absolutely right. But just like C++, right? You can shoot yourself in the foot or create amazing games, right? So I hope we help developers to create amazing solution. We put some guardrails and a lot of attention to security to make sure that people will not shoot themselves in the foot. And the idea is that today it's very common to have a database. It needs to push data out of the database itself, right? And before the feature we created, you only had the option to poll data, which is not exactly an efficient way, or create your own and create your code, or use some third-party tool to extract data and then send it somewhere. So we wanted to simplify that. Many developers asked that to make it much easier. So we created a new storage procedure. The name is a little bit longer, but we had to use it to stay compliant with the naming we already have. SP invoke external REST endpoint. And the name says it all, I guess.
Okay, that's not too bad. But if I think about this architecturally, this would simplify a ton of things. If I might have triggers for notifications. I
Yeah,
might be polling to go and let other systems know about this. Why not
exactly.
just do it when it happens?
No, exactly. So, Scott, let me show you a slide I prepared so I can easily describe what you can call with Azure SQL and this new storage procedure. You can call, as you see, basically everything. Power BI, it's pretty cool because you can execute a DAX query and get the result right into SQL. You can host your REST endpoint that you have created in a container or in Azure Function or app services, and you can call it from Azure SQL. But you can even call cognitive services, for example, to enrich the data you already have. For example, I have a demo where you can check if some data is in a good shape or not, or yeah, use just event grid and event hubs, so you can use or create an event-driven architecture, which is very common today. Or if you need to call any endpoint anywhere in the world, in any cloud, or even your hosted servers, you can just configure API management and use that to create your gateway to your endpoint and call it. So very nice, very flexible.
Interesting. Let me ask you this though. Are there any times when I would not want to use this because I might be inadvertently creating a feature that already existed? Like I don't want to go and create a pub sub system
Yeah, right.
with this primitive when the pub sub system already exists. So like when is it appropriate to use existing event hub technologies or existing technologies
Yeah,
as opposed
so
to this?
no, that's a good question. The point is that, of course, I mean, we don't want to have Azure SQL become like a new email sender or a new pub sub, as you described. But the idea is that maybe you want to be able to react when something happens in database. So let's say you have an application, maybe an old application that you have migrated to the cloud, and you want to make it a little bit more reactive. So whenever a storage procedure is executed or whenever something changes, you want to fire off logic apps, for example, and send an SMS to someone, or update a website with some fresh data, and in general, anything. For example, I had MVPs suggesting me that we could send data to Power BI, to what they call the streaming data set, to update the progress of a ATL in real time, so you can see where the whole ATL process is during the night or during the day. So you can always keep an eye on what's happening. So the possibility are, of course, endless, which means that there is a chance to, abuse it and slow everything down. But for example, we added quite a lot of guardrails to avoid noisy neighbor problems. So depending on the level of Azure SQL you are on, you will be throttled if you try to do too many requests at the same time. We have size limit in the payload you can send. You can only reach out to HTTPS endpoint to make sure that everything is always secure. And also you can, by default, you can only reach out to domains we own. So app services, event grid, cognitive services, so that we are sure that your data will be sent to a service we trust, and there are no options or possibilities like DNS poisoning attacks or something even worse than that. So we try to make sure that everything is secure and you cannot shoot yourself in the foot very easily.
I mean, as with every foot gun, there's the potential.
Yes.
But yeah, so I'm hearing you say that this is a tool, use it to, notify other services, integrate with other services.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're going to send a couple 100 megabytes of JSON off into somewhere else, you're probably using it wrong. And in fact, you won't allow dumb stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the point. And this is just the start. We want to evolve this in future. So we actually, let me make sure that everyone knows that this right now is in public preview, which means you can easily use it. And this is the right time if you have any feedback to report it to us so we can improve the product. But yeah, feel free to go and use it as you wish. Hopefully we did a good job putting all the guardrails so you just enjoy the feature without any pain.
All right, I love it. Impress me with a demo, my friend.
Oh yeah, let me do that. So the first demo is with, for example, Azure Function. Let's say I have an Azure Function, a super simple Azure Function that I can just maybe call from everywhere here. So let me just call this, and you probably just get some JSON, right? This is the function you would normally call from your curl or Postman or Insomnia or even your application. So let's say I need to have this data within Azure SQL for any reason, right? So before, I should have figured out a way to batch this request, schedule it, do something inventive to just do something that otherwise would have been very simple. Well, luckily today it's simple again, because all I have to do is call SP invoke external REST endpoint. You pass the URL. You can set your headers if you want. You set the payload, and you can literally send anything as long as it's JSON, and then you will get the response. And let me just execute this. Let me connect to database. And this is done. It's already done. So it's pretty fast. So if your function, if your endpoint is fast, we will answer as fast as possible. So it's not necessarily going to take seconds or even tenths of seconds anytime. If we can make a call in 50 milliseconds, we will do it. And all depends on how fast your function can answer.
Right.
So,
and it sounds like all the existing best practices around Azure, as far as if I'm in West US and that's where my SQL is,
yes,
and that's where my function should be,
that's right.
Ingress and egress, all of those things apply.
That's right.
Certainly, the speed of light remains.
Yeah, that's
limitation.
that's something we haven't figured out yet. But yeah, we're working on it. So jokes aside, this is the response you will get. You have two sections, one that give you all the metadata, so the result of your call and the headers that comes back from the service, and then the result is the payload itself that has been sent back from the service. Now, everything is JSON, so it's super simple using OpenJSON, for example, in SQL, to just extract whatever you need and just use it. For example, here I'm extracting the order date or the subtotal. And now I can join it with my table, insert it in some other table, do whatever I need in order to enrich my data or do whatever I need to do.
Interesting. So OpenJSON lets you do even nested.
Oh,
JSON.
yeah. I think I have a demo later where you can extract anything from any shape of JSON you will receive. And we just, released a couple of new features that supports the JSON even better than we were doing before. So yeah, definitely we are all in improving JSON support. Yeah.
As someone who remembers, I think it was 15, 17 years ago when XML support was added to SQL Server, and people lost their minds.
Yeah.
The flexibility of what you can do in SQL, it is a database Swiss Army knife.
Yes, that's true.
Of flexibility. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, what I like to call it, and I'm borrowing this sentence from Python. I'm also a Python fan. Is that Azure SQL is battery included? It has everything inside to enjoy it right away, right? It has XML support, as you mentioned, now JSON, column store, graph models. So it's literally kind of a Swiss Army tools for developers. And now we are just adding more features to make sure that is up to the modern challenges, right? especially event-driven architectures. So here, this is something interesting I want to show. Of course, when you call an endpoint, normally you have to specify the authorization token, right? Especially if the token, the endpoint is private. And so how we can allow someone to do it securely? Well, first of all, let's say I want you to be able to call an endpoint, but I don't want you to know the secret needed to call that endpoint. So what I can do is create what we call a database scoped credential, where you will be able to store securely your authorization token in that way. Another option, so you don't even have to store secret, is to use the managed service identity. So we also support managed identity for security. And then even if I remove this or I just give you the permission to execute the store procedure, now you can, for example, create some GraphQL payload. Let's say that you have created a website where you can find the perfect restaurant for you. And let's say you are searching for an Italian restaurant in Portland. And now all you have to do is specify the URL you want to call, specify the credential that you want to be used to call that endpoint, and we will inject automatically the credential for you in the call. And then that's it. That's exactly the same as before. So let me execute this again. And this takes a little bit longer because the service it's taking a little bit longer. And as you can see that if you want to have some good Italian meal, you can go at any of these, which I don't know.
No, these are real places. Like on Casa Italian Division is like it's legit.
This is a real service.
Very nice Portland specific demo. I appreciate that.
I did my homework. So yeah, as you can see now, we can extract the location, and now in theory, all my demos are finished because they are all in the same kind of pattern. You have a REST endpoint. It may be protected by authorization tokens, and you can use it. Now, something I want to show you. This is more for fun, and maybe it's good for a small website or internal website where you don't have a lot of traffic. But this is something very nice. I'm pretty sure you know SignalR. It's a powerful mechanism that allows us to update, here we go, website in real time, right? Now, let's say that I have received some data in my database and I want to update in real time my website with the data I received. So let's say I have data for July here, right? So what I can do right now, and this is a new function we just added to easily create a JSON object. Let's say I want to add the data for July. So let's see what happens if I execute my store procedure right now. You will see that that's it. So from Azure SQL, we are pushing data into a function that is updating a SignalR sample. Is that the best way to build an architecture? I wouldn't say so, but let me say that before that, we simply didn't have any choice. So even if I wanted to just build something simple for my department, which maybe only 10 people will see every day, and for which this architecture is just perfectly fine, well, I couldn't, right? I had to build something massive. And instead here, we are just simplifying things for things that are supposed to be simple, but before it couldn't be simple because we didn't have the option.
Right. There's fewer moving parts in this solution. And this is actually, one could argue, this is quite elegant for a small team.
Yeah, I love the simplicity here. Just imagine a team of DBA that wants to enable, the ability to see something, and they just have a website done by someone. They don't have to write any code at all. So that's really empowering them.
What happens though if I'm thinking about this function here, this larger notebook as a transaction, and I either require or I don't require line 6 be, that has to happen, or it didn't work, but it's not at the end of the world.
Yeah. So the idea is that, of course, an HTTP call is not a transaction and cannot be. So if we begin a transaction and you execute the endpoint, well, if it's okay, yeah, you can move forward. If it's not okay, you can decide or to roll back the transaction or again to move forward. But you cannot roll back the message you have sent or the function you have called, right?
Right. You'd have to do a compensating transaction, and then at this point you start getting into
exactly. Cool. And of course, in SQL, you have all the options here. I'm not showing it just for the sake of the simplicity, but you can do a begin try, end try, begin catch and catch. So handle exception if you have one, and maybe do a compensating transaction, for example. Yeah.
Very cool. All right. This is extremely flexible.
Yeah, and something that I noticed, so we started building this with developers in mind, but what I noticed is that actually many people are using for Power BI. And so with Power BI, you can actually have a nice endpoint. This is pretty new in Power BI called executeQueries, where you can execute a DAX query. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I think so, but basically it's a language that allows you to query Power BI models, right? I'm definitely not good at this, so I just copy and pasted this from my friends in Power BI team. And the point today is that maybe I want to move some data that exists in Power BI into my Azure SQL. And again, before today, I couldn't. So here, what I could do is just, again, create my query, pass it to SP invoke external REST endpoint, and then enjoy the result. Let's see if my token is valid still. And yes, perfect. So what you see is that the result of DAX execution into Azure SQL. And of course, DAX is returned as JSON. So if I go here, you will see that this is how my data is returned. But it's super simple right now with JSON, OpenJSON to extract and treat it as a table, right? So imagine now I can also, again, join with existing data or do whatever I need to do to enrich maybe some data I already have in my database, and I wanted to enrich it with data coming from Power BI. Oh, that's pretty nice, in my opinion.
That is, I keep coming back to the Swiss Army knife. Like it's just, it opens up a bunch of ideas and ways to
Yeah,
integrate that I had just never thought of. Because of course, data that is in a Power BI has been chewed up and processed and
exactly.
pre and post processed and brought through a data lake.
Yep.
Why shouldn't you be able to access it? Well, that's why they have the
Yeah.
API. I could then bring that into a report, a smaller, Azure SQL database, and then work on
Yeah.
it. Why shouldn't I be able to do that? And in here, you did it in a couple of dozen lines of SQL.
Exactly. And there is a well-known pattern for that. It's called a reverse ETL, where you actually take your refined data and you put it back in your original database to kind of create a sort of a positive cycle, right? Where you enrich and improve the data over again and again. And
Absolutely brilliant. I love it.
yeah, the last thing, and then if you have any specific question, I can show Event Tab. Oh, actually, Event Tab is one of my favorites. So let me show you. It's here. So I created a simple application that listens to an Event Tab. And yeah, so here I am listening. And now let me show you how fast this can be. Since you mentioned before that, of course, this could be abused. But if you use the right tools in Azure SQL and SQL together, I think you can create pretty interesting solutions. So here, what I'm doing is just sending a message with the content episode and information about this episode we are recording to Event Tab. Let me show you how fast it is to receive it. Well, it's already done. Right? It's way lower than 50 milliseconds because, of course, Event Tab is asynchronous by nature. So
Yep.
we just call it and that's it. It's done. So let me...
That was one of my next questions was that, would you at some point want to be able to do a fire and forget async on your side? In this case,
Yeah,
Event Hub replied quickly and they're handling the async for you. I assume in the
exactly.
future you could do the same.
Exactly. Another option, if someone doesn't want to have Event Tab for any reason, my suggestion would be to use Azure Durable Functions that they also allow to have an asynchronous pattern easy implemented. So, and they also are super fast to answer. So, yeah, and it's amazing. And just keep in mind that I'm working from home today, so I'm not even in the Microsoft campus. And so this is the time it takes from my request to go from here to Azure SQL to Event Tab and come back. So it's pretty fast, I would say.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Very cool. So you
Yep.
said this is in preview, right? When I can start using this now, how do I get involved?
Yeah, absolutely. You just create an Azure SQL database, and then it's there. By default, of course, you need to be an administrator in order to use it. Otherwise, you need to ask permission. Again, we know that this could be abused, so we put it behind a new permission that you have to ask to your administrator if you are not the administrator of Azure SQL. But that's it. That's the only thing. Then you just do a SP invoke, and you're good to go.
Very cool. And I see right there, demos 5 and 5B, you can call cognitive services.
Oh
You can
yeah,
call whatever makes you happy, can't you?
Yeah, this is super. This is the one I love. Here, I'm just really doing something that before would take a little bit more than a simple effort. So let's say I have this data here. This is my data that I just received from an IoT device. and I want to understand if something is it looks like an anomaly here. So what I could do is in just one query here, I'm selecting all the data that I received and it's saved in a table. I'm shaping it such in a way that cognitive services can understand, because of course cognitive services expect you to send JSON in a specific format. So we are generating that specific format, and just for the sake of the demo, let me show you. It's kind of a set of arrays. So this is how you should send the data to cognitive services for it to be able to use it. So that's exactly what I'm doing in just one query. Now let's comment this out. And then I'm calling my anomaly detector cognitive services that I have created. And then what I will be doing is joining my table, my original table, with the result to check if any of the value is an anomaly or not. So let's see what happened. So first of all, it's already done, again, pretty fast. Now, all these values up until column are the values that are in my table, my original data. And from this key column and on, we have the value coming from the cognitive services. And if I move here, I can easily find that now this is considered an anomaly, because we received the data 1,000 something, and instead the system thought it should have been 800 or close to 800. And again, doing this from Azure SQL in just one line of code saved me so much time, actually also money, because I don't have to spin up another service unless I want to, and I have a reason for that complexity, right? That's my main point. Again, let's keep the simple thing simple. I can always add complexity to my system, right? But now I have a choice.
Now we have a choice. Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for spending time with me today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was super exciting.
All right, I am learning all about native integration with REST endpoints with Azure SQL DB today on Azure Friday. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Azure Friday. Now I need you to like it, comment on it, tell your friends, retweet it. Watch more Azure Friday.